Imagine you're a Viking warrior. You've survived 3 raids, you've crossed frozen seas, you've watched your friends fall, and somehow you're disappointed. Not because you lost, but because you're still alive. That sounds insane. But for a certain type of Viking warrior, it wasn't just a mindset, it was a religion. To understand why a Viking might want to die, you have to understand what they believed happened after. The Norse didn't believe in heaven, not exactly. They believed in Valhalla, a hall so large it had 540 doors, each door wide enough for 800 warriors to walk through side by side. Inside, feasting, fighting, more feasting, and every morning, the warriors would wake up, go outside, and kill each other. Then they come back to life, eat, drink, and do it again. Forever. This wasn't punishment. This was the reward. But here's where it gets complicated. Not every Viking who died went to Valhalla. The hall had a strict selection process, and Odin, the king of the Norse gods, ran it personally. Odin was obsessed with war. Not because he liked violence, but because he was preparing for something. He believed the world would eventually end in a final catastrophe called ragnarok, a war so devastating it would destroy the gods themselves, and Odin needed an army ready for it, so he sent his choosers, the Valkyries, half human, half divine. They flew over battlefields and chose who died and where they went. Their name literally means choosers of the slain. If a Valkyrie chose you, you went to Valhalla. The somewhere else was called hell. Not hell in the Christian sense. No fire, no punishment, just nothing. If she didn't, you went somewhere else. Gray mist, cold, quiet. You existed, but you didn't live. No feasting, no battles, no glory. Just eternity in a waiting room with no exits. For a Viking warrior, that was the worst thing imaginable. Not death, not pain, meaninglessness. Now, most Vikings understood this system and made peace with it, but there was a specific group of warriors who took it to another level entirely. The Berserkers. The word berserk, which we still use today to mean out of control, comes directly from these men. They were elite warriors dedicated entirely to Odin, and they went to war with one goal that had nothing to do with winning the battle. They wanted to die gloriously enough to be chosen. They fought without armor. They fought without shields. They sometimes fought while heavily injured, continuing forward until their body physically gave out. One account describes a berserker taking an axe to the chest, pulling it out, and using it to kill the man who threw it, before finally collapsing. Not because he was numb to pain, but because stopping would mean he hadn't earned his place. Before battle, berserkers would enter a trance. Historians still debate exactly how. Some believe they used specific plants, mushrooms, henbane, to alter their mental state. Others think it was a breathing technique combined with fasting. Whatever the method, the result was documented consistently across many sources. They shook, they howled, their faces turned pale, then red. They seemed to lose awareness of pain. And then they charged. The Arabic traveler Ibn Fadlan, who encountered Norse warriors in 922 AD, described what he saw in detail. He didn't romanticize it. He was disturbed by it. He wrote that these men seemed to have crossed some line between human and animal, that watching them fight felt like watching something that shouldn't exist. Here's the twist most people don't know. Within Viking culture, dying in battle wasn't just an honor. Dying in bed was considered a shame. It was called a straw death. Because you died lying on straw, your body giving out from sickness or old age. Warriors who knew they were going to die this way sometimes took extreme measures to avoid it. Some Vikings, when they were too old or sick to fight, would ask to be stabbed. So the official cause of death was violence rather than illness. Others threw themselves into battle they couldn't possibly survive, specifically to ensure they died fighting rather than fading. This wasn't suicide in the modern sense. It was a theological calculation. If I die here, Odin might choose me. If I die in my bed, he definitely won't. Here's where the story becomes genuinely strange. This death-seeking culture, did it make the Vikings worse fighters, more reckless, easier to defeat? History suggests the opposite. For nearly 300 years, Viking raids terrified every major civilization in Europe, not just because they were skilled fighters, but because of something harder to counter. They didn't respond to threats the way normal armies did. When most armies faced a superior force, they retreated or surrendered. That's rational. That's survival. Vikings, especially the more religiously motivated ones, sometimes didn't. Killing them wasn't a deterrent. In some cases, it was an incentive. You couldn't negotiate with someone who was already planning to die. You couldn't threaten someone who considered death a promotion. That psychological unpredictability, that was their weapon. But here's what finally ended it. Christianity. As Christianity spread into Scandinavia in the 10th and 11th centuries, it didn't just change what Vikings believed, it changed what they thought happened when they died. Heaven wasn't a reward for dying violently, it was a reward for living morally. Suddenly, the entire theological foundation for the death-seeking mindset collapsed. If dying in battle doesn't get you into paradise, why would you seek it? The Berserkers didn't vanish overnight, but they became something different. Mercenaries, a curiosity, eventually outlawed in some Norse kingdoms. By the 12th century, they were already becoming legend rather than reality. The Vikings didn't want to die because they didn't value life. They wanted to die in a specific way because they believed the manner of their death determined everything that came after. It was a complete system. Theology, military strategy, personal identity, all built around a single question. Will you be chosen? And the terrifying part, for the people they fought against, it worked.